Hello and welcome to our first virtual summit addressing homelessness in the city of Mesa. I'm Mayor John Giles and I'm pleased to be joined today by District 1 Council Member and Vice Mayor Mark Freeman. We'll also be joined by two guests a bit later on. Today, we want to share with you some of our city's efforts to address homelessness and how we work to support those experiencing it firsthand, from service coordination to providing pathways to recovery. Homelessness continues to be a growing concern for our residents, community partners, and our city leadership. And there's a very good reason for that. Homelessness has been growing dramatically over the past 5 years across the valley. The number of unsheltered homeless in Maricopa County has tripled, and between 2017 and 2020, homelessness in Mesa has doubled. The city of Mesa is focused on addressing the unsheltered population of homeless, which includes people of all ages and backgrounds. The approach to this issue is not a one-size-fits-all approach. It evolves to match the individuals and to address the most pressing needs. It's important to note that this is an ongoing effort in Mesa. We've been working on this for quite a while. It didn't just begin, and it will continue to be a work in progress. Vice Mayor Freeman, obviously, this is an issue that we have, as a council, have heard a lot about from our constituents, our residents. What are your thoughts on what you've seen and heard in your district and throughout the city on homelessness?
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's important to let our residents know that we hear your concerns and that this issue is very important to us, especially to us as a city council and also city leadership. I know there's a lot of concern out there on the streets and sidewalks and out of our public spaces, such as our parks and our libraries. In fact, I get a lot of questions about the panhandling laws and urban camping and other things that are around that area. We have a lot of great people in our city, and they are well-meaning, and they want to help those individuals when they see them struggling. I think it's important to point out, Mayor, that Mesa offers many wraparound services that will help them become self-reliant. So I would say then, rather giving directly to people on the sidewalks or at the park or work, we'd invite you to work with our faith-based organizations and nonprofits. That way, these organizations are designed to give assistance and services to those in need, especially in a safe and meaningful way.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Freeman. You've raised some very great points, and we are going to, this is the first of two sessions that we have planned on this topic, and the next session we are going to address specifically some of the points you just made having to do with healthy giving. You know, how do we demonstrate our compassion for folks in a positive and very productive way, and also our city's strategic plan to help people progress, you know, out of homelessness. So those are important topics that we're going to reserve for our next forum. Today, I'm excited to talk about a couple of other great aspects to this situation. We're going to talk about our city's Off the Streets program and our community court program. To begin that conversation, let's begin with watching a short video about the Off the Streets program.
Homelessness is a complex issue, and there's no single solution or a one-size-fits-all approach.
What we're trying to do is try and find as many people in the city of Mesa that are experiencing homelessness, that are susceptible to COVID, and try and get them into a safe environment off the street so they can stay safe.
As a city, we balance the needs of our residents in the interest of public safety and supporting our entire community.
I've been on the streets for 4 years. I don't have nobody. It's just me, you know, my family's gone. And it took me a long time to realize that I'm not the only one out here that is struggling.
It's critical to work with our community partners. So we sought them out to have a place. They provide a safe environment for people to live in. Then we sought out community bridges to provide wraparound services and case management to help people get connected to services.
And I want to better myself. Like I've been homeless for 4 years, and I'm just tired of it. I want a home of my own.
Thank you very much. We're very proud of the Off the Streets program. Let's continue our discussion about this program. We'd like to welcome to this broadcast Detective Aaron Rain. Detective Rain is well known in our community. He's been involved for the last few years on very much full-time on this topic. He's our homeless coordinator and oversees our efforts regarding homelessness. Detective Rain, thank you for all that you're doing. Would you tell us a little bit more about the Off the Streets program and how it's being implemented in the city of Mesa?
Certainly. Mayor Freeman, Mayor Giles and Vice Mayor Freeman, thanks for having me. Operation Off the Streets is a collaborative effort of community partners and city departments to reduce the spread. We started out to reduce the spread of COVID among our vulnerable homeless population. It started full speed in mid-May, May 18th actually, and city leadership in early May had requested that we come up with a plan to help reduce the spread of COVID and contraction of COVID among our vulnerable population and within our community. By May 18th, we were up to speed and running. And initially it was an emergency response using federal funding to help those that were susceptible to acquiring COVID within our community to help get them off the streets into a safe and healthy environment. We started by collaborating with local business owners that specialize in housing to procure safe living environments for persons who reside in temporarily and help build them a path to a more sustainable future and a more sustainable path. We started partnering with our local community partners that provide services to help wraparound services to help people exit homelessness, like community bridges, to provide case management and to help build a path because each person needed a different path to exit homelessness. They really are the nuts and bolts of getting the individual into the path and to progress them into self-reliance and find an appropriate level of care to meet their individual needs. At the front end, police officers and sometimes fire crews receive calls for service from community members that see something, or there's a self-initiated contact by officers, and they make contact with persons experiencing homelessness. They assess the situation, and they provide either accountability solutions, depending on the circumstances. That could be physical arrest, that could be a citation into community court with a court date. Which is a diversion and service provision to increase accountability and to reduce negative behavior in our community. In all situations, whether misconduct or violations are present or not, services are offered. Officers sought out the most vulnerable within our community to get them connected to services as soon as possible. This would include your elderly, families, veterans that we'd have living on our streets. So just for a little bit of a spectrum or a little bit of a view of the scope, since May 18th, officers have contacted about 4,300 contacts with people that are experiencing homelessness. Almost 1,900 of those were offered services in combination with some sort of judicial accountability model, whether it be a citation or an arrest. Of the 4,300, 400 were transitioned off the streets into a temporary housing environment. Of those, almost 200 have already transitioned out of that temporary housing environment to a self-reliant path. From an accountability perspective, nearly 100 of that 400 were actually exited in a negative manner due to either misconduct or non-compliance. And of that 4,300, total 1,500 were simply or just a judicial accountability resolution because their conduct in the community was such that that was the appropriate path. This started as an emergency response, in a program, but it really has evolved into the Mesa way of responding to homelessness and just how we do business moving forward. But without a comprehensive collaboration between city departments to include the police department, fire department, housing, community engagement, parks, transportation, library, city manager's office, combined with our local businesses and our local service providers, the progress that we've seen so far would never have happened. Is there more work to do? Absolutely. The city's committed to meeting the needs of all of our residents. And along the lines of what to do, you'll see, if you see somebody in need, probably the best path is to contact the police department, and they'll have officers contact them, assess the situation, and refer them to services. Clearly, services is our first step. And so we also have a list of specific services on the city website if you're looking for specific individual services. That's basically an overview of what the Operation Off the Streets program is.
Thank you, Detective Rain. You know, as I listened to what you gave a good overview, but some of the biggest benefits of this program, what would you say they are, so that our community might know a little bit more about the benefits that are offered? So first of all, you kind of mentioned about our public safety personnel, our police and fire, and other wraparound services. Could you maybe just summarize maybe 3 or 4 top benefits of this program?
Certainly. One of the primary benefits that we found, and it was kind of, it was just organic on how it appeared. It functions, the program is functioning more as a pre-shelter. So we have these existing shelter programs and options within the homelessness reduction system. But if you're talking to someone that's living under a bush, metaphorically or actually, and you're like, hey, let's go confront your mental illness, your addiction, your $10,000 in fines for trespassing and such. That's a big hurdle. But if we get them into a safe environment for a week or so with food, shelter, showers, and they get to feel like a human being again, suddenly that conversation is much easier. They're much more willing to move down the path of progression. So we're seeing a significant increase in the people that traditionally wouldn't accept services, accepting services, because we're able to try and get the steps to exit homelessness to be a little bit shorter. So this helps us make that step a little bit shorter. I use the analogy of a 9-foot ladder with 3 rungs in it. And traditionally, you have your shelter, and then you have transitional housing, then you have permanent supportive or self-sustainability. And so what we needed to do in Mesa, and what we're actually achieving, is adding additional rungs to the ladder. Some people can skip a step. Some people need all the steps up the ladder. That being said, it also gives the officers and the fire crews and the frontline responders a tool to help those in need. When you find a family and you find a vulnerable person on the street, they go through a COVID screening process. They get figured out what services that are available to them, and then they get transitioned off the street. And it makes for a longer term solution rather than that fire crew or that police department officer or that police officer having to go back and back and back with the same people. It gives them a better option and a more sustainable path.
Aaron, the program, as you've described it, obviously there's a critical role and that's played by the police officers, by our first responders, by city government, but also this is a big program, and it relies heavily on community partners in addition to the city of Mesa. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Certainly, that's absolutely true. We could not do this by ourselves. This is a community effort. Someone once said that you don't end homelessness by giving someone a place to live, you end homelessness by giving them community. And it takes a community coming together like they are, like business owners offering their expertise. And to be quite honest, they're going to do it better than we would if we were to try and duplicate those services, and probably in a more cost-effective manner if we, the city, were trying to duplicate those services. So reaching out and partnering with these businesses within our city, and reaching out and partnering with these community service or these service providers within our community, and plugging everybody together, everybody coming to the table, along with all the city departments that have interface and intersect with this particular topic, and getting everybody picking their lane and staying in their lane and kind of working together, has been amazingly successful. It's quite remarkable to watch the community come together and work together, and businesses, and the community around, just seeing the difference has been quite remarkable. But without our businesses and our community partners, would not be possible.
Thank you, Detective Rain. I think when I've listened to you, I think it's important to know that, these are just one way for those finding a way out of homelessness, but then us as community members, we can also participate as well, as I mentioned earlier. But where do most people go from here? What happens next?
So that's actually a good question, because like I think the mayor mentioned earlier, there's no one size fits all, and that is 100% true when it comes to homelessness. there's a myriad of paths that cause people to enter homelessness, and the exit from homelessness is just as varied, to be honest. So some will move to formal shelters. Some will get reconnected with their families. Some were actually folks that were just working full time that didn't have enough to get a first, last, and a security deposit. So a month in this particular environment made them so they could build their savings and then progress on. We've had quite a few people that just needed that little bit of break from having rent or just being on the street to build that little nest egg to get there. We found one gentleman, a veteran, who was living out in the desert, who had tens of thousands of dollars in the bank. So getting him connected to his VA services to help him transition out of homelessness, and he has a sustainable path now to wrap him in services. So it could be a bunch of different paths, and really it depends on what that person's needs are. And that really is the key, working with our community partners and our community service providers to find the path that meets that person's needs. Because if we try to one size fits all and everybody had to go to the same square or same box to get out of homelessness, we probably wouldn't be seeing the success that we've seen thus far. And this is a very challenging population to keep motivated. And so what we've seen is truly remarkable because of the willingness to adjust it to their particular needs.
Well, thank you, Aaron. We're proud of the work that you're doing in Project Off the Streets. And this type of emergency short-term shelter is critically important. But like you say, there are steps and progress that people need to make from this initial response, and that is going to be part of the subject that we cover in our next forum, is our city's strategic homeless plan and helping people move from one step to another. But this Off the Streets program is a great first step in providing some emergency short-term shelter for people that are experiencing homelessness. So thank you for the great work you're doing. Next, we'd like to talk about the important role that our Mesa City Court plays in addressing homelessness. Let's watch a short video about the Community Court program.
Our community court is a program that we have and started in Mesa that provides opportunities for people to get their lives back in order.
6 years ago, I was homeless. That's when I became homeless, and I lived here for 6 years.
The story of Erica, as it relates to the city, is really a story of change and collaboration. Initially, she was arrested for minor petty offense. The reality is, many of these issues that folks that are homeless get arrested for, trespassing, park violations, things like that, they're not violent. They're not crimes against people, but they're punished for that. And the reality is all that does is push them farther and farther down in their circumstances. And what they really need is help to help remove some of the chaos in their life so that we can help bring them into self-sustainability.
So I knew I had a citation, and I knew I had a court date that I was supposed to be at, and I wasn't there. And so my attorney was like, "You're still sick, under doctor's care. I don't want you going to jail." So he's like, "I'm sending you to community court."
We're very sensitive to that as a community, but yet as a council member, my responsibility is to make sure individuals are given the opportunity to strengthen their lives, either financial or through addiction issues, that they know that they can receive help if they so choose.
So I was very grateful for it, and then I just went through the processes, and I mean, it helps more than being in jail and then getting out of jail and still not having anywhere to go.
Every single person has different needs, has different circumstances, and some may have addictions, some may have mental illness, some may just be homeless for unfortunate circumstances and just need that hand up. What we try to do is find what those person's needs are and help them get their needs met.
We'd like to now welcome our second guest to this forum, and that's our presiding city magistrate, Judge John Tats. Judge Tats, we're grateful for the work that you and your fellow magistrates do in our city court program. I know you personally have been very involved in the creation and the evolution of our community court program. Can you tell us a little bit more about this very unique program that you've created and how it's addressing homelessness in our city?
Certainly, Mayor Giles. Thank you, and thank you, Vice Mayor Freeman, for having me. Community court was designed in an effort to try and help with some of the issues regarding homelessness here in Mesa that they were experiencing that you've heard a little bit about today. Traditionally here in city court, we deal with misdemeanors. Those include cases like trespassing, shoplifting, possession of drug paraphernalia, park violations. Many times those offenses are committed by someone who has underlying issues, whether it be homelessness, mental health issues, addiction, substance abuse issues. So the thought was, let's see if we can hook them up with some services, address those underlying issues, and maybe that way we'll be able to reduce crime rather than the traditional way of imposing fines that they're probably not going to be able to pay, putting them in jail, and making them start all over again. When I say we thought of this, it is really a collaborative effort. We've had tremendous support from city council, from city management. We work directly with many departments in the city, including the police department, the prosecutor's office, the public defender's office, and we partner with some of those great nonprofits, Community Bridges, COPA Health, Lutheran Indian Ministries. We also work directly with Mercy Care and the mental health clinics for the people who are already assigned to those clinics. People come into community court a couple different ways. Officers can cite directly into community court. So let's say an officer finds someone sleeping behind a business who's trespassing in that situation, but they recognize the person's homeless, they may need some help. So they can cite that trespass case directly into our community court. Otherwise, we also have cases already in our court that a judge, prosecutor, or defense attorney may recognize as appropriate for community court, and they transfer it over. Once they get hit there, our entire team works with them, and we either work with their case manager if they have one, or we assign them to a navigator from one of those great nonprofits. And together, we give them a directive, which has a series of tasks that they want them to accomplish between this court date and the next court date, which is usually 30 or 60 days out. Those tasks are never meant to punish. They're always meant to try and help the people get on their feet, improve their situation so they don't find themselves picking up those type of charges. Examples include working with their navigator to get ID, birth certificate, or social security card, working with them to help find employment or counseling services to address any sort of substance abuse issues. And obviously the ultimate goal is to work with their navigator or case manager to try and get off the streets and get housing if that is something they need. And obviously as the court, we've given them the incentive to participate in the programs because we advise them, if you successfully complete our program, prosecutors in most cases will dismiss your open case or cases. And as a court, we will often waive or forgive any outstanding fines they have with our court. So by doing that, a lot of times, as I think Detective Rain talked about, people may have the desire but don't really have the steps or the means to better their situation. We've not only given them the way to do that, we've given them the incentive to do that as well.
You know, thank you, Judge Tats. As I've been to community court and see how it operates, I've been very impressed by the way people are handled. They're handled politely and with respect because, you know, some of them have never had some respect in their lives, and especially where they're at in their lives. So, can you think of some of the other biggest benefits to the program that you've described? Maybe 2 or 3 of them.
Certainly, Vice Mayor Freeman. It's really a win-win. The city actually benefits quite a bit. Obviously, there's a reduction in crime. There's a reduction in homelessness that alleviates issues that might be in the parks or with the businesses and the libraries that you spoke about earlier. There's a savings in jail costs. There's savings in public defender costs. And it frees up our first responders to deal with more serious issues. But of course, the biggest benefits come for the participants themselves because they really do see their lives change. I'm constantly moved by the successful graduates we have in our program when they literally break down in tears of joy because, as you alluded to, for the first time, someone's treated them with respect. They've come into court expecting the worst and found out there's people there that actually want to help them and actually want to improve their situation. So they're the biggest beneficiaries, but the city really does benefit also. And just to throw some numbers out there real quick, in the first year of our program, we had approximately 600 participants. We had 119 successful graduates. The 10 years preceding community court, those 119 individuals had racked up more than 1,500 arrests and 3,600 police contacts. In the 1 year after their graduation, that entire group had 19 arrests. So they went from 150 arrests a year to 19 arrests in that next year. So again, it really is a win-win for everyone.
Judge Tats, like Vice Mayor Freeman, I've had the privilege of visiting your court, not just what happens in your courtroom, but the meeting before the hearings, where you sit down with the social workers and the prosecutors and the defense attorneys, and as a team, you talk about what's in the best interests of the individuals that you're going to be seeing in your courtroom that day. And as someone who's I spent a good deal of my professional life in courtrooms, I got to tell you, it was such a departure to see just this total shift, in the way things are functioning in a courtroom. Is this common? Is this program something that other cities are doing on a regular basis, or to what extent is this unique to Mesa?
It's certainly unique, and we were the first ones to really do all resources in one, dealing with many different issues. Specialty courts have been around for a while, like this one. For instance, Veterans Court. Many courts have a Veterans Court. Mesa, proudly, we have a Veterans Court. We've had one since 2014, doing a lot of the same things we do in community court, but specifically just for those people who've served in the armed services. There's a county homeless court that helps people who are homeless, working with agencies, do community service so they can work off fines they have in various county courts. And many courts have mental health courts. But we were really the first ones to bring everyone together and address the issues that the community faces, because this really is a community issue. And it's kind of an all in one encompassing type of atmosphere, so that you don't have to be a veteran to come in. You don't have to be working with a mental health clinic to come in. Anybody who picks up those type of charges I went over earlier and has those underlying issues is welcome in our court and can receive services in our court.
Thank you, Judge.
But I will add that other courts have copied us. Now, we were the first, but we're not the only one. Scottsdale has modeled the community court program. They've started one just like ours, and I've had conversations with people in Phoenix, Glendale, and Chandler, and they're also considering a similar type of program. We've had a lot of great statewide attention. We've had many people from many different courts across the state come to watch and see what we do, all the way up to a visit from the Chief Justice of the Arizona Supreme Court.
Well, that's, Judge, that's quite a great privilege to have those people look at our court system. But, as I think about it, what pathways do people take from community court? What are their next steps that they have? Because there's a lot of benefits to this program, and I don't think our residents really know in our community what benefits there are. And what do people do?
Well, like Detective Rain said, he's a big part of our community court program as well. It's not one size fits all, and everybody's kind of got a different pathway once they graduate. Our philosophy is pretty simple. We don't want to graduate someone until we as a team are confident that they've reached a place in their lives where they're not going to be in a position to pick up the type of charges that brought them there in the first place. So we really want to make sure that they have the tools and have the services for success when we graduate them. Sometimes that's after 1 or 2 court appearances because they've done everything they need to do, sometimes on their own before they got there. We've had some people with us for well over a year before we think we're in that position. But the great thing about working with the nonprofits is even once we've done the graduation, we've celebrated their achievements, we've given them their certificate, the prosecutors dismissed their cases, we've waived their fines, they don't walk out of the courtroom door alone because they've associated with either a clinic or with a nonprofit navigator. They can always turn to those people for more resources if they need them. Many of the housing programs that we end up getting people housed through have wraparound services, have support services. So once they've got that roof over their head, they still help them with the needs of life, the needs to function daily that they may still need some assistance with. So again, I couldn't be more proud of our community court program. It's been 2 years now. It's an evolving process, and we can see it get better every single day.
Well, Judge Tats, thank you so much for what you and the rest of the staff at the Mesa City Court are doing to join in this community-wide effort to address homelessness. Community Court and the Off the Streets program are part of Mesa's ongoing efforts to address homelessness in our community. We'll convene again in a future summit to discuss healthy giving and connecting those in need with important resources. Again, I want to thank Vice Mayor Mark Freeman, Detective Aaron Rain, and Judge Tats for joining us today. I also want to extend my gratitude to Detective Rain, all of our public safety teams, and our many nonprofit partners for their ongoing work to facilitate these important resources and for serving our community with care and compassion. There are a lot of good-hearted people in our community who are anxious to help those who are experiencing homelessness. Especially during the holidays. We want to make sure that you have the resources that you need to address those folks in need. So as we close today, I'd like to leave you with some important resources. Everything that you've heard discussed today, additional information is found on our city website, which is mesaaz.gov/homelessness. And again, we'd invite you to tune in for another forum that's going to address our city's strategic plan and best practices for providing on an individual basis help to those that you experience who are in need. Again, thank you very much for participating and watching this forum. And again, we encourage everyone in our community to join with us in this community-wide effort to address homelessness in our community and to demonstrate what a compassionate community we are. Thanks again.